and welcome to the Mindset RX series of the Alpha Movement podcast. My name is Tom Foxley, and I help functional athletes gain a champ's mindset. And today's episode is going to be a touch different from normal. Quite frankly, here's what's happening. I was having a discussion with a really good friend of mine, Charlotte Miles, who does amazing work in the CrossFit world, producing incredible video content, and like that's putting it lightly as to what she does. But anyway, I was talking with her the other day, and we were talking about a mutual friend, her very, very good friend. For me, he was just an acquaintance, Chris Moore. For those of you who haven't heard of Chris Moore, he was on Barbell Shrugged. He was one of the original Barbell Shrugged crew, and he had an incredible philosophy and outlook on life, something that was so wise beyond his years, really. He seemed to have an incredible perspective on almost everything, and his writings and his speakings, whatever that word is, whatever the right word is, his musings, I think I'm going to go with musings. His musings were life-changing for me, and they completely put things into perspective for me. On the subject of this, Chris had something called Vice Friday, where he would engage in multiple vices, and just kind of do the shit that he really enjoyed. And I'm not sure whether it was every Friday or just the occasional Friday, but he had his Vice Friday. And I've decided to indulge in my own Vice Friday, essentially. So just before speaking to you guys, I decided to just chill out, play some guitar, speak to some friends. I then obviously had a gin and tonic and moving on to beer because I'm middle class and I wanted to appear cooler when I'm speaking to you, and hopefully the sound of beer would be much cooler than gin and tonic. And it's kind of a chance to indulge and enjoy. And the reason why I wanted to speak to you about this today is, twofold. One of them is I think it's a really good thing to remember Chris Moore, and he had such a big impact on my life and the life of so many athletes I've trained, actually, that I think it'd be a really good thing if you went and checked out his work. So his writings, I think it's called The Collected Writings of Barbell Buddha. It was published recently, which is all his books combined, and it was published I haven't said the tragic punchline of the story, which is that Chris passed away very suddenly, very tragically, and it left a huge hole in my heart, and I know the heart of many other people as well, people who followed his work. So the first part of this is to shine light on who Chris was and who, like, in his memory, and if you can find his book or his books, because he wrote multiple brilliant books. Barbell Buddha being his kind of collected books, and also kind of this, if you can find the individual books as well, they're fantastic. But also to like kind of look at his podcast as well, or have a listen to his podcasts, which are fantastic and full of wisdom and hilarity and fun and joy. And I think that's the essential thing that kind of Chris brought to the world, was a wisdom combined with joy, wisdom combined with fun. So I wanted to do that. And the other side of it, with it being Vice Friday, I thought I was just going to switch on the microphone and see what happens, see what comes out, and hopefully there's some wisdom and like that maybe Chris has passed on to me and that I can pass on to you. And excuse me whilst I have a little sip of beer. By the way, it's a great Brewdog. It's a limited edition Brewdog. If you guys are in the UK, I think Brewdog are only in the UK, but if you're in the UK, enjoy Brewdog. Anyway, so Vice Friday, I think the reason why it's so important is because when we are in what I call the chaser model, and I have 4 mindset models, like checked, which is I can't get anywhere, essentially. I feel stuck, I can't move forwards. The changer, which is 1 minute I feel great, 1 minute I don't feel great. Chaser, which is where I'm talking about, which is I want to get to the next stage. And champ's mindset model, which is the person you admire, the person who you look at and you think, this is an incredible person. When we're in the chaser mindset model, so often we want to overwhelm ourselves with the amount of things we can do. So we chase the next thing. We're constantly chasing the high ground instead of chasing the kind of the gray area in the middle, which makes it sound unappetizing or unappealing. But quite frankly, that's where the gold lies, right in the middle there. That kind of that 1% every day. If you try and take 10% every day, you are going to burn out. And that's the value of Vice Fridays. If you put something in there on a regular basis, which is intended to just give you a chance to chill the fuck out, you're gonna have fun. Whether it's a date night, whether it's just like a long walk, whether it's going out with your mates and getting smashed, like whatever it is, I think it's a really good thing to do as an athlete and as a human being. Because if you're coming through Mindset RX, or if you decide to work with me, or even if you don't actually, even if you're just listening to this podcast, it's becoming an athlete is such a small part of what we do. You're going to be a human being long after you're an athlete, and it's worthwhile cultivating the mindset and the lifestyle that will serve you as a human being as well as an athlete. And yes, there's transfer between the two, but I think it's really, really important to work towards like what will make me a happy human being. What days will I remember in the future? And if for you that's just dedicating your entire life towards athleticism and becoming the best athlete you can, that's fine. But by the way, I guarantee there's going to be a point where that runs out. But I think that it's a really good thing to not forget that we've got 4 other pillars of life. We look at life as like, or sometimes as, especially as a chaser, like I spoke about, like most of you guys listening to this, I'm assuming you're CrossFitters. Most of you guys listening to this will fall into 2 mindset categories. The changer mindset, where you'll be thinking about 1 minute, like for example, you wake up in the morning and you feel great, and this carries on for like a week. Everything's progress, and then suddenly you start self-sabotaging again. Suddenly things go wrong, or maybe something goes wrong, and then you begin self-sabotaging as a result of it. And your life kind of fluctuates between the two. You go from one extreme to the other. You're feeling great, and then you're feeling shit, and then you're feeling like maybe the second model of these is the chaser mindset model, which as I said, people have described as the puppy dog model to me. It's like the excitement. You're usually loud and like kind of want to move forwards, and you're kind of maybe quite excited to move forwards, and this is where you spend most of your life. And if we're either spending a lot of time in the chaser category, which is like one side of the changer category, or if we are exclusively in the chaser mindset, chances are we're forgetting another big portion of our life. And we have 4 aspects, like I touched on a second ago. We have 4 kind of main areas of our life. And this is the way I see it. Lots of people have other kind of areas, but if we break it down fairly kind of simply, we have health. So you can put your physical performance in this. You can put your athletic performance in this. It can be essentially who you want to be athletically. We have wealth, which is obviously your career, the assets you hold on to, the kind of your financial well-being. Health, wealth, love, obviously your relationships, your friendships, your relationship with yourself is in there as well, and happiness. We have essentially your mindset, your happiness with who you are, and your mindset as a whole. So we have these 4 categories, and quite often we're either excelling in one or we're completely diminished in one. And because of this, we invest so much energy into there that we forget the other 3 areas of our life. And I think this is, to become a well-rounded human being, you need to invest in the other 3 areas too. And whilst this may seem like it's detracting from your ultimate goal and for who you want to be, the carryover there is enormous. The carryover there just helps you progress as a human being. And the most successful people I've ever met in my life, and I've been so fortunate to meet some incredibly successful people, both in the world of CrossFit and not in CrossFit. They have identified the principles in each area which carry over. So my principle of consistent elegance and the Mindset RX principle of consistent elegance, it isn't really my principle at all. It's something I've gained from my vast, that was grandiose and verbose and arrogant all at once. From my experience, let's leave out the word vast. For the thing that I've gained from my experience is that if I do the consistent, elegant approach to everything, I generally take steps forwards. And this is what we have to kind of aim for, in my opinion. And I could be completely wrong, by the way. I think it's always a good idea to take what I say with a pinch of salt. So I think that's kind of the main thrust of what I had to say today. And give me a second whilst I take another sip. So yeah, as I was saying, that's kind of the main thrust of what I was going to say today. But whilst I was going through that, a couple of other points came to mind. And the first of these is that I've been so lucky to spend my time with these other people. And if I had, and this is going to sound cruel and harsh to the people that I grew up with, I'm guessing not many listen though. If I was going to spend that time with the people that I grew up with and my default surroundings, I personally wouldn't have grown as a human being as much as I had as when I reached out and kind of started conversing with Julian Pinot, for example, or best example, Chris Moore, or any of the other people that I've had in the podcast. When you're around these people, they drag you up, and you don't have to be personally connected to these people. And I might be teaching you to suck eggs here, but when you listen to podcasts, you get a dose of that. When you read books, you get a dose of that. And if you're surrounding yourself in those kind of people, you don't have to push as much. It's not like you're forcing yourself into a different angle. You just become more elevated. You kind of get lifted to their level. It's less pushing and more pulling. You just get pulled towards and kind of gravitationally pulled towards their level. And that's probably the biggest impact I could say in terms of advancing your, let's say if you want to advance your career athletically or your athletic performance. If you're in a shit gym filled with shit people, you're never going to move forwards. You're going to be stuck. And you'll never advance your mindset. You'll never address your issues, your weaknesses. But if you move to, and I think the best example of this is CrossFit Invictus. What CJ's created there is an incredible facility full of winners. If you go there, you start performing better. Your standards raise. And Richard, who's currently in the not only the Mindset RX Academy, but the coaching cert as well, he's phenomenal about this. He's so on point with the fact that he talks about standards. His standards need to be higher. And when you surround yourself with other people whose standards are higher than yours, you get dragged up to there. So if you're looking to advance athletically, if you're looking to advance in anywhere, surround yourself with the people whose standards are higher than yours, and you end up just being dragged up towards them. And that's probably one of the biggest pieces of advice that I could give to you. The other side of this that I noted down is something that I know I've spoken about before, and that's just unlimited potential. And whilst it's a cliche to say, and whilst it's kind of it sounds, I don't know, a bit wishy-washy, and so kind of I really must change it because it sounds so, as I said, wishy-washy. But it describes perfectly really how we look at things. And whilst your potential may not be completely unlimited, yes, there's physical limitations. If you're in a third world country, chances are you've got a lot further to go than someone who's as lucky as I have been and a lot of the people that I grew up with. If you're genetically, if your parents were 5'5" and 5'4", chances are you're never going to play in the NBA. There are things that that will go against you, and there's nothing you can really do about those. But your unlimited potential, or your potential, is far closer to unlimited than you first give yourself credit for. I think societally, we're kind of conditioned. Yeah, conditioned is the perfect word. We're conditioned to think small. We're conditioned to think stick in our 9 to 5, play the game everyone else is playing, grow your pension, withdraw it, and then kind of maybe live the last 20, 25 years of your life just vaguely plodding towards death. That's pretty much it. And it's just kind of, you're so conditioned, and society conditions you to move down this path. However, no one says that path is real. That path is just a figment of who we believe we are. So if you keep on moving yourself forwards, and again, like I said just now, like finding the 5 people whose average you want to be, if you keep on moving in that direction, you're sure to move forwards. You're sure to become a better human being. You're sure to grow, and not only that, you're sure to make a path which is far more interesting, and it may feel more dangerous, but the truth is that it's such a small risk in comparison to others. And the last point that I wanted to kind of bring up is, if this all feels daunting to you, if the concept of unlimited potential feels daunting with you, you can't do anything better than take action and just take a step forwards and find your minimum effective dose. Well, first of all, find who you want to be. Like, who do I want to be? As an athlete, who do you want to be? And we can start off, if we're going to go down the full training kind of route of this and the mindset process of this, start off by figuring out what you want to achieve, or kind of what you think you want to achieve anyway, and then ask yourself why you want to achieve that thing. What is it about getting to the CrossFit Games that you really want to achieve? What is it about putting 10 kilos on your snatch that you really want to achieve? And I'll give you a bit of a hint here. Maybe it's about growth. Maybe it's about becoming the best version of yourself possible. Maybe it's about significance. And if it is about significance, don't hide from it. Just because you want to feel like the best version of yourself, maybe if you want to, just because you want to feel the best person in the gym or in your region, that's absolutely fine. If you want to feel like that, aim for it. Or maybe it's about connection. Maybe you want to achieve your best so you can feel connected to the people that you're surrounded with, and you want to feel really close to those people. Once you've kind of ascertain that, then you can grow into who you want to be. And once we get to who we want to be, an incredible thing happens. We find that motivation isn't as much of an issue. If we regularly take steps to remember who you want to be, for example, journaling, reviewing your direction daily, and on top of that, imagining your outcome, so looking to the future, thinking about who do I want to be. These things are amazing in terms of self-motivating and self-driving, because drivers will always outweigh motivation, and who you want to be as a driver. Motivation is getting pumped up, and that's never going to happen. I know that it just doesn't work. So taking these steps taking the steps towards ascertaining who you want to be is an incredible way to begin taking action. And these great feats all begin with a very simple, small, like almost immeasurably small step. And that first step is usually belief, or it's committing to, I am going to do this. And once you commit to taking the smallest step and finding your minimum effective dose, success is easy. And that's where I want to kind of end up today. And like kind of on the subject of a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. So on that subject, and kind of to bring it full loop, that was one of the phrases that means a very similar thing that Chris Moore has mentioned to me, is the bucket fills drip by drip. And it's this is the factor that will drive you on. If you really put a drip in the bucket every single day, it will fill up. And that's all you have to do. Just one drip at a time. Keep moving forwards. And if you've been enjoying this, well, I say if you're enjoying this, regardless of if you enjoyed this, you've listened to 20 minutes of it. So regardless if you've enjoyed it or not, I would suggest you go and check out Chris Moore's work. A really beautiful soul, and someone who's incredibly missed by me personally, and I know a whole bunch of people in the kind of the fitness and health and mindset community. So I'm doing an invisible cheers to Chris now. And if you enjoy the show, leave 5-star review, but that all seems like bullshit after saying that. So if you enjoy the show, do whatever you want to do. Enjoy your life. Go and have a good weekend, and I'll speak to you soon.